Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. 'Cause I never give up the fight. Hey, what's good, people? Platinum Bearded Dread. Tails on the bench, them. Question, man. Don't you ever get moments where you feel like giving up? You know, you feel like just calling it a day and packing it all in. That you can't go any further. What is it that makes some people keep going through the pain, um, you know, and through the struggle? They keep going, but other people just say they can't go any further. It's a big question because, you know, it can relate to so many things. But hopefully, with the time we got together, I can draw your attention to a few things that might throw up some food for thought and help you on your journey, like it's helped me on mine to strengthen our resolve and our will. Because let's face it, man, right now it's almost like life is becoming more and more difficult for everyone, and even children are feeling it in a way they've never felt it before. But let me at least begin by asking the question, if you're going through trials, at what point do you give up on your partner, say, your wife, your husband, your children, your dreams and aspirations, or even yourself? Let me elaborate with a few examples. I mean, first and foremost, we never really know what someone's going through that makes them actually say they can't take it no more. And perhaps the most, the saddest example of that is when a person takes their own life and says they don't want to be here no more. But hopefully, you know, there's a way that we can look at this, that we can learn from others. And let me give a few examples that might help. If we take, for instance, the Christ figure, you know, known as Jesus Christ, or Yeshua, which is the Semitic tongue, the ancient tongue. What would make a man like him go through so much pain, torture, abuse, persecution, and still keep going in love? What would make a person do that? You might say that Jesus is he was superhuman, and he really wasn't, because otherwise he couldn't be an example to us. But even if we don't use him as an example, let's use something we're more familiar with. Look at a man like Bob Marley, arguably the most talented singer-songwriter and the most famous singer of peace and freedom of the 20th century. Sorry. Now, many people would have known that in the last 5, 6, 7 years of his life, he was dying. You know, obviously diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, but he still chose to perform and sell out big stadiums, you know, despite knowing that the strain and the stress of it all was taking more years of his life, and it was detrimental to his health. You know, even up to the point that his wife Rita was saying, look, you know, we can stop this tour and people are making money from you, but they're not looking at your health and what you're going through. And he, despite the pain, he still went through it, and he still continued to perform until he couldn't anymore. Or if you want to look at a very, very recent example, our very own Black Panther, or should I say Chadwick Boseman. You know, we all know the story here. Basically, this is a man that was diagnosed with a terminal illness, cancer, and was basically dying, losing weight in the process, but he still chose to make movies that inspired millions around the world. Even at a time when people were, in some cases, mocking him because of his loss of weight, having no idea what the real reason why he was losing that weight, but he still kept going. He said nothing, he kept going. Even after Black Panther, when it would have made millions at the box office, he would have been able to just slow down and, you know, focus on his health, and that's it. But no, he kept going, making movies through the pain. Another example I want to give is, I was at the BMX park with my son a couple of days ago, and as we approached them, it's called the hills and the mounds and all of that, I nearly fell on the floor laughing because I saw a tiny little boy on a bike, tiny little helmet, tiny little shin pads, and I was so amazed that he was with his dad and his two brothers and sisters. And I said to the father, "How old is he?" He said, "He's 3 years old." And I laughed. I nearly laughed my hat off because that's by far the youngest person I've ever seen on that BMX track. So I said to him, there must have been a point where he had to go through some scrapes and bruises, to get the confidence to go up and down, the hill. He said to me that when he was under 3 years old, well, first of all, he said that he learned to balance at 18 months. Again, I nearly fell on the floor laughing. But he said that there was one incident where, while he was on his bike, another child purposely rammed their skateboard into his little BMX. And as a result of that, he fell off his bike and opened a wide gash in his skull. And he actually showed me a photo of the boy, in A&E, the blood, everything like that. And I was like, my gosh, man. I mean, this is crazy. So I said, I'm assuming he didn't want to get back on the bike for a long, 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 long time. And the dad laughed and said, no, he was back on the bike the next day. And he showed me a photo of the same son with a bandaged head on his bike. Again. So why am I giving all the examples? There was something underlying all these examples that made these individuals go through and keep going through despite the pain. And the other one word is love. Now, I'm not talking about mushy love because that word sometimes gets abused and thrown all over the place, but bear with me on this one. In all those cases, they had a purpose that they were striving for that was bigger than them. Like Bob Marley was the message. Through the music, he needed to spread the message, despite the fact that his days were numbered, despite the fact that every day was painful for him. He needed to spread that message of love and peace universally, and that's what kept him going. Christ, the same thing. We know Jesus Christ, the same thing, that doing the will of the Most High God, his Father, as he called him, was greater than the pain that he was enduring and the hate. If we look at Chadwick Boseman again, despite the fact that people are openly mocking him in the media about his weight loss and the fact that he decided to keep it to himself, his determination to get that message through films was stronger than the pain he was receiving through his illness and through the negative feedback that he got from the public and the media. And when your purpose is greater than you and is greater than the pain, there will be something inside you that will give you the resolve and the will and the strength to go through every hurdle despite how painful it is, because you're looking at the bigger picture. There's something that's giving you the strength because you realize that there's a picture bigger than yourself. I mean, you might turn around and say, well, that little boy on the BMX bike, it's hardly a big picture. But it is, because that's a child who is aiming for the quote-unquote impossible. I mean, you don't see 3-year-olds on, going up and down mounds on a tiny bike, especially after you've had an accident. It's got to be something bigger than yourself. Even when you look at parents who endure all kind of abuse from their children sometimes. And when I look at my mother, I was never disrespectful, but I didn't really appreciate how much she sacrificed and how much she took on until she passed. And there are many mothers all over the world who take on so much pain and abuse for their child because they have the insight and the foresight to see where that behaviour in that child is going, and out of love they endure. Now you may turn around and say, what about situations where you're, for example, in a relationship and you're enduring all this pain, for instance being abuse, physical abuse at home. You can still love the person and you can still hope for the best for that person, but from a distance. If you have to remove yourself from that situation, you still believe in that person, you still believe in the capability of that person changing, but you do it from a distance and you allow that person to make the rest of the journey and whatever lessons they have to learn. But it doesn't mean you give up on them, it just means that you've allowed them to walk the rest of the journey and whatever lessons they need to learn. and in the process, that's how you've helped them. So you're still loving them, but you've loved them in a way where you've had to remove yourself from the situation. But at the root of all those examples, it's an emotion and a cause that is bigger than the individual, which stems from love. And that's what gives them the resolve to go through the pain, you know? It's quite a deep thing because from the outside looking in, we may think, man, this person's soft, or this person's this, or this person's that. But it's a very powerful, it's a very powerful attribute to have. And it makes sense when you look at all these great ones that have, who changed the world. Unfortunately, they've had to go through the pain and the torture, but it's not until they've gone then you realise, wow. And then you realise you ask the question, what was it that pushed them to keep going through the pain? Now, we don't always have to be talking about on a, monumental level. It could be the smallest thing. Sometimes, I think to take my son, when he started school not long ago, secondary school, morning ones were like hell because every morning was like. So I said to him, look, son, just take one day at a time and realize that the end goal is you're going to make friends and you're going to learn new things. But don't feel that you have to work it all out. Just look at the end goal, the end result. No matter what we're doing, if the end result is greater than the pain, usually because it's bigger than us, we'll find something that will strengthen our resolve and our will to go through it. I really hope this makes sense, man, because it's such an important thing, and it's the only way we can overcome some of the greatest obstacles, but in our own lives, and by also observing the great ones and how they did it. Because if the cause isn't big enough, and if love isn't at the root of it, there's no way you're going to keep going, And this is not to undermine those who have given up, but it's just to give us a tool, if you like, or a tool, if you like, to draw strength from, to keep us going and to endure. Ultimately, like my dad said, he used to say to me that only you know where the shoe pinches. But there's more to you in terms of your will than you realize. Whether that's, going into the gym, or, changing the way you eat, or, facing exams. It doesn't matter what it is. But there is something in all of us that is much more powerful than the thing that we're looking at. And when that thing in us becomes stronger, rooted in love, trust me, you'll find the power, the will and the resolve to go through this. Anyway, I hope you got something from this, man. Don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe or something. That way we can do this again, and hopefully I can drop some more food for thoughts. Anyway, Platinum Beat the Dread. Tales from the Bench them. Check, man.